Hey, I normally don't do an introduction to my chats I have, but I wanted to with this one because I know a lot of people watch a bit of the show and move on to other things. But this one, if there's one episode you watch all the way through, I would encourage you to make it this one. As Aussies, we have the blessing of part of our culture being, no worries, she'll be right. We let things slide a fair bit. And in the gambling space, it's part of our culture to a degree, and most people flutter with it and have fun, and it's no big issue. But with the things happening on our phones these days, and lack of activity of governments to really be helping the small a percentage of Aussies who have real trouble, their lack of action is just being swept under the table. I'm talking today to a guy called Mark Kempster, who a young bloke, was a gambling addict for 10 years, has a lot. He works helping people work through their problems these days. He's got a lot of information about what's going on in the industry. It's stuff that Aussies need to be aware of. We just need to educate ourselves on some of these things so we do know what's going on. That may not be affecting everybody in the community, but certainly affecting a lot of people, and it's growing all the time. So please check out this episode with Mark Kempster. Mark Kempster is my guest here, guys, and we're new acquaintances, we're new friends, and I've just had a few chats on the phone with Mark, and I've got to watch some of his other podcasts he's done. And mate, before we get into the chat, I just want, as an old bloke here talking to a younger bloke here, a young bloke, mate, you're a big set of kahunas on you, mate. You're brave, very brave in what you've been doing, and very honest and open. And that's very admirable in somebody, mate. So I just want to throw that out there to start off with, that I really appreciate what you are doing. And we'll go into your background, but I will also mention down here, there's on YouTube, I'll put the link in the description, but recently Mark did a chat with Carl, is it Cal? Cal from
Cow, yeah.
Cal from Youngblood Men's Mental Health, which goes into a lot more depth of his background. But mate, to start off with today, I guess if you could just give us a brief background on where you're coming from, and then we've got some other issues we'd like to raise and talk about.
Certainly, mate. No, I appreciate those words. It's something I'm very passionate in, and we'll get into why probably through the podcast. But yeah, I went through a gambling addiction for a fair chunk of my life, for a whole decade, which in my 20s through to my early 30s, and lost about $100,000 across that time. It really did affect me mentally and physically as well. But I'm one of the lucky ones, and I'm really cautious of saying that every time I do a podcast, that I am one of the lucky people in this country who gets through an addiction, gets through a gambling addiction, because the stats show that not many of us do. So I've really taken it as on myself now I don't want other people to go through what I went through. So I'm now work for the Alliance of Gambling Reform as a lived experience gambling advocate, and advocate and try and put as much pressure on government and local government and federal government to try and enact the reforms we need in this country, so we don't keep losing a generation we've got coming through to gambling addictions.
And I guess, mate, a lot of the people who I connect with in my network of musicians, they're out of the gig economy, they're in that entertainment space. And gambling's not unusual. It's like most people kind of handle it pretty well, and it's actually part of our culture in many ways. Goes back to the convict days and everything else. And we're still the country that stops for a racehorse every now and then, and most people have a punt or have a flutter and doesn't really worry them. But obviously there's a certain percentage of the community that it is a big problem for. And I think that's been growing bigger and bigger, mate. How such an addiction, mate, was that something that you saw in your personality, or something that you were aware of early, or has it hit you out of the blue, or what was the lead into that?
It's something that probably built up over time, but then when it got out of hand, it built up really quickly. So I was someone who I'm in Tassie, so I played a lot of AFL football when I was young, and got brought up in a sporting culture. And same with the musicians and the gig economy, like you said, mate. The same type of culture of mates getting together and enjoying themselves. The same as at the footy club, you get together and you'd play footy and have a beer and go to the pub and bet after a game a lot of the time. And I was a young bloke doing that. I was playing up at a higher age when I was 15, 16 and got brought up in that type of culture. So it was something I handled okay to start with, but once there was the incoming of the prevalence of of gambling apps on phones in Australia started in the mid 2000s. My addiction like cycled into a really, really bad addiction really quickly and got out of hand. But it was something that I knew I had an issue with for a long time as well. So like I've had an addiction for 10 years, but I reckon for the last 6 to 7 years, I was fully aware of my addiction and what was going on, but I never had the tools in place or the mental capacity to actually get out of that addiction at the time. So it's something that I had to live with and lie through, and it ruined me for a long time and really changed the person I was for a substantial amount of time in my life. So, yeah, it was something that caught up with me pretty quickly. When it got a hold of me, it was something that it took me a long time to get rid of as well.
But I preparing for today. Look, I haven't had a punter background myself. It's just something that didn't never sort of interested me. But I've got a lot of mates who do, and I spoke to a few of them, getting their take on what's happened on the ground level. And one of the chats I had today, it's really interesting how many people out of the sporting world do punt, and it's like, you jockeys punting on the football, or you get cricketers punting on the races, and there's a lot of that in the sporting community. And I guess that's always been going on, but it's really kind of grown in recent times with obviously the online betting and everything else. Did you get caught up in that space, or was yours kind of traditional punting? Where were you sort of sitting yourself?
No, everything was online for me. So I had a horrible online gambling addiction, in particular with horses and greyhounds and the like. And like I love my sport, so I bet on sport as well. But a lot of my stuff was around horse racing and greyhound racing and harness racing, where I lost the majority of my money. And on without if gambling apps didn't and internet gambling didn't come in Australia, I don't think I would have ended up in the place I did. It had that much effect on me, having the access to it 24/7 in my pocket. And that's the problem we have at the moment, that people don't need to go to the traditional methods of going to the pub and having a bet, or going to your local TAB and having a bet. You can sit in your room and you can lose your life savings in half an hour. You can lose your paychecks within half an hour. And especially, I suppose, in your industry as well, with it, Nick, like people who finish at odd times of the night, and there's not much to do when they get home. And I've seen it. I help people now who are musicians, and I've got a few people who I've spoken to now who are in that type of industry who are really struggling with addiction, especially with gambling, because they get home at night, there's not much to do. They're on a high from what they've done during the night. They can't sleep, so they turn the races on, have a bet, and before you know it, they've lost the money they've made that night. So it's the prevalence of having it in our pockets and how easy it is to bet is just causing this epidemic of addiction at the moment in gambling, which we've seen in Australia. It's gone up, like the amount of the statistics around how much the gambling's gone up in Australia, especially in the last 5 years since COVID, is astronomical. And it's epidemic proportions we're going through at the moment, unfortunately.
And we're one of those countries, as I was saying before. By the way, I've just put up again. If you want to go into a longer discussion about Mark's journey and the darkness he went through and the hassles he had, and finally got to the point where his partner told him that, she found out what was going on. And that's the thing. You're saying that you hide what you're doing, and it's not like a drug addiction where people see you stumbling around the place. You kind of take a lot of weight in on yourself, and you wear that darkness, which leads to then a lot of emotional stress and traumas. And it's interesting. Your chat there with the men's mental health platform. I think that's one of the things that's probably not discussed enough around gambling is how much it does affect mental health, and mainly men's mental health. And you go into great detail in that chat, mate. So once again, I just recommend everyone on YouTube, check out that chat. I'll put the link down below. I'm not going to drag Mark through everything there, but mate, that last point you came to, where I remember you said that it was around Christmas, and you punted like 10 grand in a day, and you got yourself to a point where you're pretty done and down on everybody, and your partner sort of going through your phone found out what was going on and had that confrontation where I imagine from what you said, she kind of gave you a bit of an ultimatum, I think.
Yeah.
Your pathway from that point, what was your thought process on how you got from there to being someone who escaped it?
It took a lot of hard work. I knew I had an issue for a long time, and it was probably a blessing in the end. Like, it was a blessing in the end that my partner found out, because I wasn't going to deal with it myself. I got to a point with my addiction that I just presumed that this was going to I was either going to lose everything around me and this was just going to be me for the rest of my life, or it was going to take my life at some stage, because it was just I was so trapped. I didn't see a way out of it, and it was actually the weight that came off my shoulders when my partner actually confronted me about everything was huge. And I I didn't want to lose people out of my life, and that was probably the catalyst to get myself right. Like, I had a 2-year-old son at the time, and he's the love of my life along with my partner, and I didn't want to lose him out of my life. So that was really my catalyst, was to keep them in my life. So I I went to the GP the next day. Like, it took a lot of strength to go and get a few things done. Went to the GP the next day and got a mental health plan sorted out. Had to admit that I was struggling and admit that I was basically broken at the time mentally, and I needed help. So I got a few things in place around mental health plan, seeing psychiatrists, and then slowly just worked my way through and took it day by day. Really, it's not. And again, I'm one of the lucky ones, because most people who go through gambling addiction will relapse at some stage, and the statistics show that as well. That I'm one of the unusual ones who actually goes cold turkey with an addiction and gets through it. So yeah, I'm very lucky in that sense. But yeah, it's taken a lot. I've had to put a lot of things in place in terms of mindfulness things, like to just try and retrain my brain to stop the urge to gamble. So that was a big thing. My actual psychologist taught me, is that I need to an urge in your body lasts for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, basically, is what all the research shows. So it's about controlling that 20 minutes when you have an urge to bet. So, and retraining your brain to try and make that something positive. So I started running again. During my addiction, I went from being a very, very sporty, athletic footballing person to putting on 35 kilos, was 120 kilos when I finished, and gave up all my fitness during that time. So I really wanted to get myself fit again. So every time I felt the urge to bet, I decided to go for a run, or I decided to go watch a movie, or I'd take the dog for a walk, or do something positive, to something that I enjoy doing. And music especially, like, I'm a massive music fan, so I would go and listen to music. I would go to the record shop and look for records and buy an album, buy some vinyl, stuff like that. So it was about retraining my brain to stop the urge, and to the point now, like, I'm 5 years sober now from betting, and I haven't looked back really, but it's because I put those things in place to try and help just retrain my brain away from the addiction. But yeah, it took a lot of hard work across these last 5 years, to the point now, like, I forgot it was Melbourne Cup Day last week, to be honest. I'm that far past it now, and the only time I think about it now is when I'm doing my advocacy work to try and get the reforms we need, as I mentioned, just so other people don't fall into the traps that I fell into.
So, mate, when you look at, like, someone who's got an alcohol problem, they say that they're alcoholic all their life, but they manage it. With gambling, do you get over it, or is it something that you've got to manage all the time, that it's actually part of you all going forward, or is it?
I think that I'm always going to be an addict, and that's I've had not arguments, I've had discussions with people around this. Like, some other addicts think that if you get through it, then you're fine. But I'm of the opinion, and just with the way I feel about it, is that I agree. It's the same as any other addiction. You're always going to be an addict, and it's how you manage it during your life, and during the stressful times in your life, it could always pop up again. So yeah, I always feel that I'm never going to be a recovered person. I'm in recovery the whole time, and it's just how I think I've got the right tools in place to manage it, and hopefully I'll be able to get through the rest of my life without having another bet. But if it does happen again, and I do end up having a bet at some stage, I'm confident I do now have the tools to get through it again as well, not fall back into things. So yeah.
But mate, when you were talking on the other chat I was watching, and you was talking about how that it was something you could pretty much hide. You said you became a bitter person and all that, but it was something you could hide, and it was only till your partner found out what was going on that really slapped you in the face. I'm sure Aussie blokes, there's many Aussie blokes, I'm sure, mate, who will be going through the same thing, where they figure they can either manage it, or they don't want to expose it to show a weakness, and they want to kind of they figure they can go with it. If someone's watching this, or anything, or they know someone who's going through issues, and they're in that space where they really don't want to deal with it openly, who can they talk to?
It's important you try and talk to someone, and that's something that I really, really struggled with. I hid this for so long. It was such an internal battle for me for so long, and the moment I started talking about it was the moment I actually felt so free in myself and could actually get through what I was going through. So If you haven't got someone in your life you can turn to, look, obviously that would be your first port of call. If you have someone you can trust and you have someone you can open up to, please go and talk to them, because you need to take that weight off your shoulders. If you haven't got someone like that, as I mentioned, GP, go and speak to your GP. They can set up mental health plans for you, which gives you subsidised rates to go and see psychologists or anyone along those lines who can help in that situation. Gamblers Anonymous, I spoke to them the night that my addiction came out, and we had to put things in place for me to get better. So they do a great job on the phone immediately to try and help people out with the immediate things you need to do to get through an addiction, like self-excluding yourself and stopping gambling companies from contacting you on those type of things. So you can do those type of things as well. But if you haven't got someone in your life you can speak to, then definitely go and have a chat to your GP, because they do have a lot of resources that can help in these situations.
Well, one of the I think one of the campaigns that has been pretty successful in recent times has been the one about if someone's drinking too much and they're going to drive their car, mates need to step up and tell them not to do that. I think that's it'd be great to see something happen in the gambling space too, where your mates will probably know subtly more than anyone else what's going on, and maybe mates shouldn't look after mates and be the ones to step up and say, have a private chat with a friend, say, hey, how you dealing with this? Is it going all right? And help them get pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's still got such a stigma, gambling addiction, I find. Like we are more open about other addictions in Australia, and we do look for help a bit more, I suppose, because it's such an internal thing, like we keep saying, and it's something that you deal with so by yourself so much. It still has this stigma where I still think friends, even if they see and they might have an idea, don't want to approach it, and especially with young and middle-aged men. Like, we don't talk about the way we feel enough as it is, let alone if you're going through something like that and you're trying to hide it. So like, I know my friends, a few of my friends, when my addiction came out, come to me after the fact and go, oh, we thought you might have been struggling with something, we never knew how to approach you with it. So if you do think someone's having an issue, you don't need to attack them about it or anything like that. Just be there to offer support and go, look, hey mate, look, are you going okay with your gambling? Like, I think you are gambling a lot at the moment. Like, do you feel okay with what you're doing? And they might blow you off to start with and tell you're an idiot, but that's okay. At least you're opening the channels to have a chat, and who knows, in 2 or 3 weeks' time, they might have been struggling. They go, well, like, at least I've got Joe Blogs who asked me if I was going okay. I can go to him and ask him and tell him I'm not doing well enough. So, at least open the channels of conversation with your friends about it, because it only takes one chat for someone to turn their life around in the end, and you could save someone's life by doing it as well.
Yeah, because I hear people say often, well, gambling's part of Australian culture, it's part of our heritage, part of who we are, but so is mateship, and I think it's a bigger part. And I think when it comes down to domestic violence or gambling and all those things, it's often the mates around who can actually step up and as you say, not criticise, but have a chat, have a drink together, or whatever, and just work things out. Hey, quick commercial break. Big shout out to our sponsor for today's episode, which is me, Nik Phiilips. Look, I've got to thank myself so much. I couldn't be doing the show without me. And if you get a chance, check out the sponsor's website, www.nikphilips.com. Check out my music, my videos, my bio, all that stuff, and maybe contact me and book me for a gig. That would be great. But thanks, Nik, for your sponsorship. Back to the show. But mate, as I said, I've pointed people to that other chat you did, and there's other interviews as well with the ABC and everything else you've done where people can hear your story. But my background obviously is a musician, and the pokies in particular really affected my industry, my career, my peers. Mm-hmm. And then when you see what's happened with the pokies and you see the extended damage being done through online gambling and how much money is being taken out of the community, that affects, I'm sorry to say, the entertainment industry and what people spend on the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have a chat with you, mate, if I could, about your knowledge of what's going on around how gambling's grown in Australia. I saw through COVID personally that I sat down one time with the sports minister in Queensland at the time, and nice bloke, all that. He was Minister for Sports and also multiculturalism, and I was complaining to him about what was happening with them closing down the venues, stopping us from working, all these things, yet they were allowing the races to go on without stopping. And things like that. And he like sat across the table and blatantly lied to me, said we're not differentiating between entertainment and sport at all, but I knew they were. Because I saw firsthand so many of my friends were going through dramas. No one really cared about this, the sole trader, the gig economy. The people in that space actually used us to encourage, put fear in people to follow mandates and everything else. So I start from a position where I hate what the government did with pokies when they hurt our industry. I'd like to dig into a little bit about the policies the government have in place or don't have in place that has allowed gambling to grow so much, particularly to the point now with all the online gambling, which younger generation coming through are always on their phone and they're being targeted so heavy. What's the damage being done to our economy? What's the damage being done socially? All those things, and that will obviously bleed out some areas relative to me and my music industry. So, mate, could I just get you to, you've shared some information with me recently, which is great, which is a bit Queensland orientated, which is great also because most of the people who see this for now will be in Queensland, but hopefully it's something they'll share with their friends and just give them knowledge, because while we may really have a stand we want to take against what gambling is doing to our industry, it's also important we know why we're saying that. What are the actual facts underneath everything that's hurting our community and our society? And mate, you're the bloke to tell me about those type of things. So.
Look, where do you begin on what they need to do and what they haven't done? Like we are in a country that is just utterly beholden. Our governments are just beholden to the gambling industry, and it's something that I've learned really quickly in the last 18 months, especially doing the more advocacy work I do. How hard it is to get any traction with any type of gambling reform that's going to help people and help economies like yours. With it,
well,
Nick.
Sorry to interrupt you too. Yeah. Can you just expand on this? I think most Aussies think it's normal that you go to a pub and play pokies. But it's only like Australia and New Zealand you can do that, right?
We are the biggest losers in gambling in the world. We have more pokies in this country than most other countries combined, outside of the States, basically, and Hong Kong. We like Tim Costello, who's the chief advocate at the Alliance of Gambling Reform, where I work. He's done so much work in this space, and he says it really well. Like we don't everywhere else in the world has destination gambling. We don't have destination gambling. We have
they have to go
gambling.
to a casino, for
exactly.
Example.
You have to go. So, for instance, if you're in America, if you want to play the pokies, you got to go to Vegas. You got to go to Atlantic City, pretty much, to play the pokies, and they don't have as big a issue with poker machines as what we do, because we have poker machines in every pub in New South Wales, in every pub basically in Queensland. I'm in Tassie. Majority of pubs down here have got them, let alone the casinos who have them as well. 42% of all the poker machines in the world are in New South Wales. In this, it's just it's
42% of all the poker machines in the world are in New South Wales. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's around that number. If it's not that number, it's a tiny bit more, tiny bit less, but it's at least 40% of them around all the.
Nationally, we must have well over 50% of the poker machines in the world, do we?
It's crazy. Like it doesn't make sense. And the problem is, even if we had that many poker machines, if they're just in casinos, it would be a better industry than what we have now. The issue we have is that, like I said, I'm here in Tassie. I can go 5 minutes down the road to the north of me. I can go 5 minutes down the road to the south of me, and both the pubs have got poker machines in them. So, let alone New South Wales. I think the stats in New South Wales in particular show that someone, wherever you live, you have a poker machine within 1.2 kilometres of you. Pretty much, you can walk to any poker machine basically around you, because you're going to have something there. And I don't think Queensland's too far behind from memory in terms of what the distance is between pokies and people's houses there as well. So, the arguments that the industry have, like the hard thing is now that a lot of these pubs and clubs are now addicted to the actual revenue they get off them as well, and they've built their business models around having poker machines in their venue. So it is extremely hard to try and get anyone to make any changes in this space. I can go into a lot more of it as well if you want me to. Like, there is so many layers to it. So
when you look that we got so many pokies of the global percentage, you would think your natural assumption would be then, everyone in the country must be playing them. But mate, what do you know what the percentage of people that actually play pokies is? Because none of my friends play them. none of the people I know, just the occasional people in the pub that I come to will come in and play it or whatever. But see, to me, it seems to be a small percentage of people actually are pouring all this money into them. Do you know how many of us actually play them?
Like the gambling companies make the majority of their money off about 2 to 3% of the people who actually gamble in this country, and that's just the basic facts of it. Like the problem gamblers prop up the whole industry. That's an industry built on harming people, and there is so many things we could put in place in terms to stop that and help people. And again, this is not, and I'm really make sure I say this in all my conversations I have. This is not about banning them either, because as I mentioned, like industries are unfortunately now built around them, and we don't want these pubs and clubs to also go under. So it's about managing it properly and putting things in place like mandatory pre-commitment cards, which most states have the ability to do and won't do it. Like they would allow people to still go and enjoy having a flutter on the pokies and playing the machines, but you actually pre-commit to how much money you're going to lose before you go into the building, and you can't lose more than what you commit to. You can't sit there and put your life savings through a machine in one night. So there's so many things like that we can put in place to try and stop this small percentage of people who are losing their lives to the gambling companies in this country. But unfortunately, we won't do it. Like just for instance, one of the reasons why is that we have a federal government now, the Labor Party in this country, the only Western democracies political party who actually own pokie machines in the world as well. Like they are making revenue off the industry. So trying to make changes in space.
I'll stop you there, mate. Just can you're hitting me with some punches in the guts here. The Labor Party own poker machines?
They do, yeah. So the Labor Club, or so it's not the Randwick Club or the Labor Club, whatever it's called, one of the main places in Sydney that the Labor Party actually own, the Federal Labor Party do, they have pokie machines in that venue. And so let alone trying to tackle them on online gambling, which is a completely different beast. Like just in respect to pokies, they own venue, they own machines. They're not going to want to change the laws around it, especially in New South Wales, because they will lose revenue from it. They are paying for their campaigning through not all of it. Whoops, sorry, there goes my camera. They're not paying for it through through gambling revenue, but there is a percentage of their money they make. It comes from gambling, like straight up. So it's extremely hard when you understand that to try and see a world where they are going to make any changes to the industry at all.
So how much? Because I think gambling taxes are state related, aren't they? Not federal related.
They are, yeah.
Well, how much do the state governments make of their tax revenue from gambling?
If you want to know, if you go to the Alliance of Gambling Reform's website, we have a database on there where you can actually put in your local government area, and it'll tell you how much money your state government is losing. So how much taxes they're actually making from your people's losses and things along those lines. We set it up for a national convention we did for local councils this year, and it's you can just put your local government area in there, and it'll tell you how much it is. But it's ridiculous amounts of money. I couldn't tell off the top of my head, but like it's crazy amount of money you can put in there.
Mate, you sent me some info today, and you're saying in Queensland, the Queenslanders bet last year. So the amount they put into gambling, they bet $56 billion.
Yeah.
Out of that, they lost, I think, $6.1 billion, because obviously people win money back and all that, but we get back at least, I think it's about 87% or whatever of what they put through. So we're giving away $6.1 billion. Is about 20% of that goes to government? Is it taxes? Is it around that?
About that, yeah. Around roughly that much, yeah, approximate. Yeah.
Over the last 4 or 5 years, the amount the government get has increased by over 40%. And then the thing we get is we're told that the clubs and all this, they put money back into harm prevention and all these other schemes, but it's 0.6% of the money they get, they put back into harm minimisation programs. Is that?
Yeah. No, it's a fallacy what they tell you about that. It's not true. It's a line they use, and it's a line that the online gambling companies use at the moment in terms of local sport and local community clubs that apparently put money back into, and if we took away gambling advertising, then that's going to bring down local sporting clubs because of the money they put back into it. That it's just not true, and the stats you've shown there said they show that. Like it's so
that thing about you say, well, put money back into the community. I mean, this is the part I don't quite understand, which I think you've touched on somewhere in our messages, or somewhere I was reading somewhere, that a lot of the money that they put back in, they can actually put it into their own clubs and that for renovations and somehow get tax offsets for that. Is that?
Yeah. No, that's true. Like I say, when they say they're putting money back into the community, majority of the time they're putting money back into their own venue. So to make the venue better or more enjoyable for people to go and gamble at. So like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, unfortunately, a lot of the time.
To generate more tax revenue for the government at the end of the day.
Pretty much, yeah.
While taking most money they make from people who are addicted to it and can't. Yeah, they're picking on the poorest, the weakest in the crowd in a sense.
Yeah, as I said, it's an industry predicated on harm. It's not an industry for entertainment. It's an industry that harms people, and whether it's, and again, look, it's not. I'm not saying don't go and use it, and you're not saying that you're going to be harmed if you do use it. But it's the facts are there that the majority of the money they make is from people who are in gambling harm situations, and that money then goes back into creating more gambling harm situations down the road, just because of the way it's set up at the moment for them to operate.
Well, what I don't get. Now, there was a 2014 report from APRA, Australian Performing Rights Association, that actually was talking about what the live and music industry contributes to our economy. And back in 2014, it contributed 15.7 billion in total value to the Australian community, the economy. About 5 billion of that was direct money going into buying tickets, attending venues, all those things. The rest was about the money gets spent on restaurants, tax, cabs, all the things that extend out from those live performances. It was actually more money going into the economy than the airline industry was doing, right? So that was happening through our live music scene.
Yeah.
Then, as pokies have grown and grown and grown, and more venues have sort of moved away from putting on live music, or they've totally, shut down stages and built them into pokey rooms and everything else. So to start off, we can say we've lost a lot of that money that was coming through the live music industry, right? And they've gone for that for the gambling money. When we were doing the live music side, it had a very positive cultural value. We had back in the 90s, before the whole thing came in for pokies, we had dozens of bands internationally touring and promoting Australian culture and everything else, and the money coming back from their sales into Australia. I did a search on Grok the other day, and we have 2 Australian bands doing stadium tours this year. One's AC/DC, who goes back then. Yeah. Another band I didn't know, but there's one other band. So we've lost all of that. And when I look at, there was a report, a mate of mine, Tuffy, told me about a report he saw today, and I haven't looked it up yet properly, but he was saying there's a report on what people most value in entertainment, and live music came up as the number one in what they like most. So there's an argument can be made that live music covers a wide spectrum of the community, injects a lot of money into the community, and there's spin-off. Every dollar spent on live music, $3 more is added into the GDP, the whatever turn into the economy. We've gone from that to moving to a system where venues write off live music pretty much. They're doing pokies and gambling to a very small percentage. You said 2 or 3% of the population, and ripping money off them, because from that the government gets more taxes than they were probably getting from the live music scene. Is that a fair enough statement?
I think it's a really fair statement. I don't think anyone can dispute it, to be honest. Like we've seen just venues die, and because of how easy it is for governments to make the tax money off it, they're not going to stop. They're not going to put anything in place to stop these type of things happening, because they're going to make more money off the taxes for pokies than they would for live music venues, unfortunately. So everything you've said there, mate, I can't dispute at all, really.
Okay, and then my bitch in the music industry goes on further that we've lost the capacity to sell CDs, streaming. The government hasn't supported us in helping us get better returns on streaming things through COVID.
Oh, there's so many like levers to it. There's so many ways to look at it, and it's what we're losing because of, and it's just we're losing the social aspect of it as well. Like you can't. you can't go into a pub anymore, like into these rooms, and people don't sit there at pokie machines and talk to each other. They sit there and play the machines. It's not like you go into a venue when live music used to be on. And I'm a bit later. I'm 37, but I remember when I was first going out, there was a lot more live music venues, and I used to love going to pubs and watching bands than there is now. Like the 3 or 4 main pubs in Hobart that I used to frequent all the time, there's no bands there anymore. The stages are gone. We're losing venues here every day. The only venue we have down here is thanks to David Walsh, who, unfortunately, his money also came from gambling, but he did the right. He took it off the casinos not the right way, because he was
And that's
a
the
wizard.
thing.
But like his venue's only place down here we have live music at basically anymore in Tassie.
Yeah.
Like, it's just ridiculous. So
And I've got mates of mine up here who are actually come out of the beer industry and all that, and they run. They're the head of the pokie machine companies up here, and I've chatted to them about good ideas how we can work with them more effectively to build live music through what's happening. So we're actually getting a wider social scene going on, and they'll put their toe in the water, but they sort of haven't really done anything. But I've probably had my bitch about what I want to say about the music side there. Let's move. Could we just move on for a moment to what's happening in the wider scene with the online gambling and everything? Because it seems to me, my generation, us oldies, we didn't have to put up with being, absolutely connected totally through our life through this thing, and we didn't have to put up with being attacked by strategies and marketing areas that drag young people into this. We've established that the music industry, and I'm saying this to my friends out there, we need to get proactive in this space, guys, and you need this information that Mark's sharing with us so we can then come up with a strategy and a plan at the end on how we can make our space better. But beyond that, we've got to think about our community and what's happening with our young kids and everything through online gambling. Mate, can you educate us a bit on that space a bit more, on what kids are dealing with and what the governments have let happen, really?
yeah, and the links are there. Like the online gambling and the way it's attacking our children and our young teenagers is going to affect the live music scene. It's going to affect the sporting scene. It's going to affect a lot of scenes in the future, because we're going to lose a whole generation of people to addictions. Like, so for instance, at the moment we have an unregulated online gambling industry in this country. We have the majority of our gambling, online gambling companies are owned by overseas companies. So a lot of them, they don't pay a lot of tax in this country as well. So our money from gambling harm is just disappearing overseas as well. The 95% of our online betting companies are all licensed out of the Northern Territory, and we don't have a national regulator to look after this industry.
Why is that? Why is it out of the Northern Territory?
They're registered out of the Northern Territory because the Northern Territory were, in their view, smart enough to offer really low tax rates for them to move their businesses up there. So this happened in the mid 2000s. They all moved up there pretty much, and now they're all based there. And they have a regulator called the Northern Territory Racing Commission, who pretty much acts as a quasi national regulator these days, just because all the companies are pretty much based in the Northern Territory. So it's a $50 billion industry, the online gambling industry in Australia, and we don't have a national regulator. We have this Northern Territory Racing Commission, who don't even have any full-time staff to actually oversee the industry.
So, Mark, just a question there. You say $50 billion industry a year? Is that what it is?
That's right. Yeah. That's
how much of that money stays in Australia? Do you know how much goes overseas?
Majority of it goes overseas. The majority of the main betting companies in Australia are owned by overseas conglomerates these days. So the majority of that money,
we can't afford it in our country, pouring it into these things and then sending it overseas.
Yep. So we don't even see any of the return from it anyway. Like, then the argument that they do have about that, like, it's going to kill sport. This is what I was saying before. It's going to kill local sport and things along those lines. It's just it's a fallacy, because the money just disappears overseas anyway. So yeah, we don't have anyone in place to regulate it. We have an industry that's absolutely preys on our mateship, I suppose, the way they advertise to children and young teenagers in particular, and young males, the 18 to 34-year-old demographic, that they want it to be a social thing. They want it to intrinsically link it between sport and betting, but not even sport. Like, you can bet on anything these days online. You can bet on music events. You can bet on the Arias this weekend coming up, who's going to win the Aria and things along these lines. So they're trying to make it such a social normalised thing in this country. And like you see sports bet, there are advertising campaigns around bet with mates. They want to make it feel like you're the odd one out if you're not betting with your mate, and you're going to be the pariah if you're not doing it in your group of people. So,
Mate, do you know if there's there's regulations they're bringing in to stop kids under 16 going on social media? Have they tied anything into gambling advertising, protecting kids from gambling advertising?
Well, that would be the logical thing to do, but no, they haven't, because they're not. They again, it's a they see it as a separate issue, and it's, even though it falls under the same communication minister's banner, they haven't touched anything around that at the moment. We are seeing, so just for in terms of television, there's more than 1,000 gambling ads on TV every day in this country that we see, that our kids see, that our young teenagers see, and that's not even including social media or what they hear on radio or what they see in the newspaper or what they see when they're walking down the street. So, like it's just thrown in our faces so much. We have an industry that can basically offer inducements for everyone to keep betting as long as they want to, and that was one of my issues that I had, that I was just induced to gamble so much. Like, I couldn't get away from it. Every time I tried to get away from it, I was sent bonus bets. I was sent deposit matches. So I'd put money in and they'd give me the same amount of money back to bet with as well. That's about keeping them on the loop the whole time. If anyone's got the time, the Four Corners about 3 weeks ago did an amazing piece on it that I helped put together with Steve Kinney, and it's about the industry and about how this gambling industry in Australia is working. They're basically cowboys. They don't have any regulation around them, and it's completely eye-opening around what's happened. And unfortunately, we had the government did actually try and do something 2 years ago. They'd had one of their members, Peter Murphy, who unfortunately passed away just after she finished doing this inquiry, and it's called the Murphy Report. It's around what needs to happen in this industry, and it tells us that the gambling advertising is predatory, and it's been proven to be predatory, and we need to remove it from Australia, like we did with cigarettes. This report, it's a fantastic report. It's been sitting on the government's desk for now over 2 years, and they haven't touched it because, well, you can put two and two together why they haven't touched it, I suppose. Because
with Peter, was she the one who? And I'm not accusing anything here. I'm just joining the questions. Was she the one that went through a lot of issue before her illness of being harassed by her own party and other people in government? Was that politician?
Don't think that was Peter. No, Peter went through. She was a member for whatever area it's called, but she was down in Frankston, Victoria. Her area was around that type of area, but she died of cancer about 2 weeks after she did the report, and like she knew, and I gave evidence of this inquiry, and I spoke to Peter a few times. Like, she was so determined to get change because she could see how damaging this was. And if anyone wants to go and read the submissions that were made from people who have lost loved ones, who have watched friends die of suicide and things along these lines because of this industry and how they were preyed on by this industry, you can go and read all these submissions on the website. If you just type in the Murphy Report into Google, it's the first thing that comes up, and you can have a read of all these stories of people who have lost people in their lives because of it.
Was she getting support for a report, or was she getting pushback?
It was a bipartisan support. So there was this inquiry had members of the Labor Party, the Liberal Party, the Greens, Independents. It was by everyone supported it who put it forward. Like, so it had support, and the government said yes, no, we'll look into it. And that was over 2 years ago now. It's been 867 days since that table's it's been tabled in Parliament. Usually a government has to, usually by convention, they have to respond to any type of parliamentary inquiry within 6 months. And it's been 867 days now they refused to answer it.
We know why they haven't answered.
Do we know why? I've got a lot of ideas why. Unfortunately, the government is very... From what we know, this is a prime minister who is stopping this himself. Unfortunately, there is a lot of support in the Labor Party from the backbenchers to have these recommendations put forward, because they get told by the communities every day that there's people dying because of these issues. Our Prime Minister is very, very close to Peter V'landys, who is the head of the NRL and the head of New South Wales Racing. He is very close to the AFL, and he is very close to the gambling industry. And he listens to those groups of people and is really refusing to listen to anyone else around these issues. And I've seen it firsthand. Like I've had meetings with his people in his cabinet, and I've had meetings with his office. They are very short with us when we see them a lot of the time, unfortunately, and they are very dismissive of the work we're doing, and trying to paint us as prohibitionists when that's not what we're doing. No one's trying to get gambling banned in this country. It's about trying to put measures in place to make it safer for everyone to enjoy a bet, and not fall into the traps like I did, as I said at the start. So you can see that Albo is listening to the gambling lobby, because in Parliament he's pretty much just recycling the same dot points that they have on some of their talking papers that they put out when they try and defend things. So there's a lot to it. Yeah,
I can't find the report I was reading, but there was something I saw where the vast majority of Australians think there should be reforms or better guidelines around gambling, particularly protecting younger people coming through.
It's over 80% now. 80% of every time we do a
I thought
survey,
it was 80%,
every survey that's done, 80% of Australians want gambling advertising banned because they can see how predatory it is. Like it's making this intrinsic link between gambling and sport and entertainment that we're not going to be able to break if we don't do something soon. Like my son's 7 now. I went to go down to Aussies, which is like the local, like first steps into footy type of programs they have here in Tassie, and they basically. There's kids walking around at Auskick talking about sport in terms of odds. I hear them talking to their parents going, "Oh, Collingwood's $1.80 this weekend," and they're 7 years old. Like we shouldn't have to be having these conversations with us. But the gambling industry's advertising is working that well, and they're throwing it in our faces that much that kids just presume that's what it is these days. And we're going to have a whole generation grow up like we did with cigarettes in the 70s and the 80s, who believe it's the cool and right thing to do. And we're going to lose a generation of Australians to this addiction if we don't do something about it.
Sadly, I think we don't know much we can do against the big money lobbyists and those big things, and the Prime Minister, not much we can do about that. But I do think Australia's one saving grace we still have, which America doesn't really. I think I feel so sorry from over there with different things, but we can put pressure on our local members. We still can affect the local ballot and what happens in our local members, which will flow up to how our system works. Mate, in looking at all these issues, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree that we've got to be doing better. And it comes back to what, as mates, Australian mateship, we've got to be looking after our society better and across the board. And this is a big area. What are the call for actions we can be doing? What can we actually do to make change? How do we? I mean, we don't want to destroy clubs. We want clubs to thrive. Musicians want clubs to thrive. They've kind of, through their own endeavours, but with government incentives to create the tax, they've kind of been encouraged to go down this road of pushing gambling. It's not going to go away. We don't want it. We're not saying it should go away. But there should be better solutions for our society, and there should be better solutions for how we're not just giving away billions of dollars every year for nothing. What can we do? What calls of action can you suggest we do?
Like you said, we are lucky in this country where we still do have access to our local members of parliament. So it is important that if you do feel as strongly as what me and Nick do about this, that you do speak up and you go and speak to your local member. You write them an email, you send them a letter, you get in touch with them around the fact that you're not happy with the way it's going, because we know, like, and I think a lot of the local, the tide is turning. Like, I think we're going to get there at some stage with it. I think that there's too much noise now for governments not to actually look at changing what's going on, because of the noise that a lot of communities are making around it. So if you have the opportunity, definitely speak to your members, write them emails, let them know that you're not happy with the amount of gambling in your community and you want to see more done about it. Vote with your feet as well. Like, if there's venues in your area that don't have pokie machines and things along those lines, go and support those venues as well. You'll slowly start to see the tide turn, where people will go, well, maybe we should be opening more venues so we can have live music, because more people are going to these venues, not to the pokies venues. And it's little things like that. Like, again, it is really hard to take on a behemoth that the gambling lobby is. They are the NRA of society here in Australia. They're the same as what the NRA gun lobby is in America. So we are taking on a really, really big, powerful industry. And I've been amazed how powerful this industry is behind the scenes in Canberra and places like that since I've been working in advocacy. So it's going to take the little things that community people that we can do in communities like that. So we can vote with our feet. We can talk to local members. We can talk to ourselves, talk to our friends, and talk to each other about gambling and what we think about it, and support each other in that way as well.
But has the Alliance for Gambling Reform had any insight into you compare it to America there, and we know that America, what happens there is those big lobby groups will pour money into election campaigns and all that for the politicians, and the system works on that money going through. What is it here? Because we don't have that same, I know we have some financial pressures, but our local members don't have that. They don't have to find billions of dollars to run in Australia. Where's the pressure coming from on local members or backbenchers and all that in Australia?
From what we know, that and we get a lot of support from backbenchers in federal government and state governments that they want to see change. They agree with what we're trying to do, and they really are concerned about it. But the pressure comes from the power above. They get told not to speak out, or they're going to lose pre-selection. Yeah, they're going to lose. The party speaks out, and they say, like, if you want to continue in your roles, you need to be towing the party lines, and the party line is that we're not ever going to say we support the gambling industry, but we are supporting them, and we're not going to turn our backs on them either. So, like, it's really hard. And it sucks because, like, when you're elected to parliament, you're elected to represent the people in your community. And every community, if you look at the stats, like I said, 80% of the people in Australia want gambling advertising banned. They want reforms made in the gambling space. They're not listening to the community at the moment. They're listening to a small few who have the power to talk to and pay their way into meetings with these people, unfortunately. So
if over 80% Australians are supporting this and wanting it, maybe this is something the independents and those sort of politicians on the edges could sort of jump up a lot louder and make a lot more noise about, and encourage us to support them against the major parties. If the major parties are going to tell their backbenchers and everything else what they have to do to supporting the industry.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we are seeing that. Like, people like David Pocock, who's been amazing the last 12 months with the pressure he's put on and the voice he's had to put pressure on about gambling reforms. There's people like Kate Chaney and Zoe Daniel, who unfortunately lost her seat at the last election, but she did some amazing work in that space as well. It is. And this is not a political message. I'm not trying to get people vote either way, but they do have the power to speak up freely, and you don't see that in the parties anymore. They have to toe the party line, and if they don't, unfortunately, they get the boot. So, it is. The independents are doing a great job. Andrew Wilkie down here, who I work in the office above him, like he does amazing work in the pokey space as well, and the laws around trying to get venues to return stolen money to people and things along those lines. So we had to support those small independent candidates where we can.
Mate, great chat. Really appreciate this. And as far as the Alliance for Gambling Reform, is there anything the public can do to support that organisation, or is it just sort of do its thing and sort of put out messaging, or what's its role?
No, for sure. That you can sign up to our mailing list. If you go to the Alliance of Gambling Reform website, there's so many different stories you can read on there about the harm that's been caused, and the people who are like me who are advocating for change. You can sign our petitions, which helps us when we go and meet members of parliament to show the support that we have. I think we've got about 37,000 signatures on a gambling advertising reform petition at the moment. We are a non-for-profit, so look, we do run off the fumes of an oily rag. So if you do have the means to donate, we would definitely appreciate donations as well, because that's how we pretty much operate at the moment. We don't have any federal funding or anything on those lines to support us, so we do work off donations and benefactors a lot of the time. So I know we're in a very hard spot financially in this country at the moment, but if you do have the means to donate and you are supportive of what we're doing, there's links on our website to do that as well. But just the resources there to actually open conversations with people about gambling. If you go to the website, there's heaps of things on there you can learn from my chats I've had and other people's chats I've had as well.
And Peter Costello's involved, is that right?
Tim Costello.
Oh, Tim is
not Peter. I think Peter's on the other side of this issue. So Tim's our chief advocate. So Tim is a dead set national treasure, Tim. He is one of the most vocal and the most important voices we have in this country on reform. He has done so much positive work for people. He was the head of World Vision for a long time. He's a national treasure. So he has a lot of chats you can go and listen to on our website as well. He does a lot of work for us. So, he's our main advocate at the moment to try and get some change, which is really good.
Yeah, mate. That's my stupidity saying Peter over Tim. I'm sorry about that.
But he wouldn't be the first one, mate.
Even with the homeless and everything else, everything he's done socially.
He's amazing, yeah.
Mate, is there anything that we should be raising that I haven't raised here with you?
I don't think so. Like I said, the main thing is
we could go for weeks on that thing.
Well, we can talk forever, mate, man. Yeah, we'll probably talk offline. It's fine. But like it's just really important to open the conversations about gambling with the people around you. Like, don't let it be an addiction that's stigmatized in this country where we don't talk about it. Open the channels, have a talk about it. If you are struggling, reach out. If you don't have anyone to reach out to, you can always reach out to me. I've left all my social media channels open, and you're more than welcome to send me a message if you hear this and you need help, and I'll give you a call and we'll have a chat and see what I can do to try and help and just be someone you can lean on as well. So, but yeah, reach out to people, talk to each other, look after each other, and support your live venues as well that don't have the gambling in them, because that'll be another way we can try and turn this thing around, hopefully.
Absolutely brilliant, mate. And as I said, I open this thing up by saying I really appreciate your bravery and your going through what you've gone through, then taking a stance to help our communities the way you're doing, mate. I really, really appreciate what you're doing. But thanks for your time, bro. And I'm sure we'll have another chat sometime soon.
Yeah, anytime, Nick.